Welcome to Insured Investors, where we share practical real estate investing tips with an insurance twist. I'm your host, Brooke. Let's get started. It's common for someone outside the insurance industry not to know the different entities that may be involved in insuring your properties. When most people talk about buying insurance, it tends to be insurance companies that get the most attention, which makes sense considering the number of commercials we've all seen. But insurance companies are not the only avenue for purchasing insurance. Today, Casey Carter, VP of Business Operations, is going to discuss with us the different insurance purchasing avenues and how these entities may work together. Casey started in the insurance industry 8 years ago in sales and service. In his current role, he focuses on business development, building partnerships, and providing training and resources. He also works closely with the programs team in development, implementation, and the rollout of new offerings. Welcome, Casey.
Thank you.
Happy to have you here. So this can sometimes be confusing when people are searching for insurance. So tell us, who can people purchase insurance through?
Yeah, so really there's going to be three different avenues that you can kind of, let's say, purchase your insurance through, right? It's going to be your agencies, your brokers, and through the insurance companies directly.
Okay. What is an insurance agency?
Yeah, so the insurance agent is, or the agency that employs agents, are going to be authorized directly by a carrier to sell a product. So you have two different subcategories of agents, really. Those could be captive, they could be independent. Your captive agencies are really going to be directly appointed with one particular carrier or insurance company. They're only going to be able to sell that product. But on the opposite side, you have independent agents. They could be appointed with 2, 3, multiple different carriers where they're going to be able to shop that coverage for you in much more of a wide array fashion.
Okay. Do we have any examples of a captive versus?
Yeah, so whereas your ma and pa shop down the street, that could be your independent agent where it's, ma and pa insurance agency versus you go to a Travelers agent in a strip mall. You see the Travelers logo right outside there. They're going to be authorized to sell the Travelers products directly to you.
Okay. What is an insurance broker?
Yeah, so really unlike agencies, or captive agencies, brokers are going to have a much wider array of carriers to really choose from. Unfortunately, many of them are not going to have the authority to actually bind that coverage on the insured's behalf. They're still going to have to work with the company directly or through an agent, but that's going to allow them to shop that coverage at a much more competitive pricing option for you if that's something that you're extremely concerned about right now.
Okay, so they're kind of like the middleman, helping you to find the best deals, but not necessarily providing the actual insurance.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best comparison you can make on that.
Okay. And then what about companies? We've talked about that a lot, but what exactly is an insurance company?
Yeah, so the company is the carrier or the insurer. So when you think of, hey, who's going to pay the claim when that tornado hits my house, that's really who you're going to be thinking of in that aspect. They are on the hook for the financial risk that's associated with insuring the location, and they're going to be the ones that are setting the underwriting guidelines, appetite, and expectations of the policy.
Okay. So let's talk about how carriers and companies and agencies work together and their different roles when it comes to insuring properties.
Yeah, so we have carriers in the agency really when we're talking about this particular question. The carriers are really going to be establishing the rates, right? They're going to be the ones that are communicating any type of changes in deductible, rate structure, coverage changes to the agent.
Okay.
Really with the underwriting expectation or the appetite of the policy itself, they're the ones that are determining geographic locations, underwriting considerations, the whole shebang on that aspect, but then they communicate those changes back to the agent. So then you take the agent or the agency, and they're going to be the ones that are communicating that to the client or the insured. They're processing the payments, they're collecting it, but that money doesn't stay with them. When they are collecting it on, an agency bill perspective, they're paying it back to the carrier, and if it's direct bill, it's going directly to the carrier. But the agent's the one that's setting all of that up with the insured.
Okay, so they're keeping it all organized. They're the one talking to you about the coverages that you might have, but they're not necessarily the ones who are determining the claims.
Exactly. Yeah, their job really is to represent you and get all of that information directed over to the carrier.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. What about who sets the guidelines and exclusions in all of the policies?
Yeah, so this is really the carrier, right? You have your average Joe on the street, and they're working with an agent, whether it be an independent agent or a State Farm agent, because that's who their parents worked with, and they're working with them now. A lot of people think that agent is the one that's raising their rates. They're responsible for their wind deductible going from $1,000 to 1%. That's really not the case, right? It's the carrier who's determining all of that. They're the ones that set the appetite for their entire company, whether it's, they're writing habitational risks, they're writing BOP policies, workers' comp. They determine where we want to take coverage at, where we want to place coverage at what rate we want to charge, and what deductible structure we want to charge. So all of that's really going to be completely up to them. The agency in this aspect is really taking the risk that they're being provided from the insured. Let's say that they had a habitational dwelling policy that they needed written. They take the underwriting information and they submit it over to the carrier. Now, it's also in their best interest to know, hey, I have carriers that take this particular risk, or they take X risk. That's what the agent is really providing the insured in this aspect of giving them the best opportunity to place that coverage for a particular risk that they have.
So can you talk to us a little bit about how and why carriers have different appetite for risk in different areas of the country, and why they may fluctuate their rates throughout the year?
Yeah, I think it just relates all back to what risks that they're willing to take at that time, right? If a carrier's had quite a few losses, or had, let's say, a quarter of losses in the past, they might shift their appetite at that point. Everybody knows insurance isn't a charity, right?
Yeah.
These carriers are in it to make money, and when losses happen in different areas of the country, we're going to see different rate increases as we're moving forward. So those are in relation to different weather phenomena, hurricanes, earthquakes. The Texas freeze is a great example a couple years ago. Something that's unexpected and sudden that happens across the board is really going to drive those rate increases, and the ability for carriers, or the want for carriers, to actually offer coverage in different parts of the country.
Something that has a major financial impact that we weren't planning for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. What are the duties of agencies and carriers when a claim is filed?
So the agent is really data collection up front. They're going to get with you, determine what happened, and help file that to the actual carrier themselves. So, hey John, I'm sorry that all of that wind damage happened last night. Can you give me a little bit of information so we can get that submitted over to the carrier? Mm-hmm. So from there, once submitted to the carrier themselves, that carrier is going to get the claim in, they're going to get it processed, and once the claim details actually come to them, then they're going to assign an independent adjuster. So that independent adjuster is going to handle inspections, analyze the policy documentation, whatever they need to determine whether this is going to be a covered claim or not. So after the inspection occurs, they determine, hey, we're going to pay a claim out, or they decline it. If they pay the claim, then the adjuster is going to write an estimate, settlement recommendations, and then send that over to the client themselves.
Okay. What are the main benefits of working with an insurance agency versus a broker versus a company?
Yeah, so agents are what typically people think about when, hey, who am I going to contact if something happens, or I need to add a new car. I just purchased a new car, I want to get it on my insurance policy. A lot of the benefits of working with an agent is that personal touch or that personability that you're going to have with them from a relationship perspective. Whether it's going to be an agent that only works with one carrier, or an independent agent that works with multiple different carriers that shops it for you all the time, they're the advocate on your behalf. They're not the one, again, deciding to raise your rate. They're not doing any of that. They really do have your best interest at heart. So working with them is always a great option, and that's kind of the benefit of doing so. Working with a broker, you're going to have a lot more options. But also, they're not going to be able to bind that on your behalf. They're going to have somebody bind it for you. And from a carrier perspective, it's, if you're writing directly with a carrier, it's going to be fast, but they're also not going to take the time to explain a lot of the coverages that you have. Hey, these could be potential different options. Most likely you're going to see a price that's yes or no. And it's very black and white in many of those cases. So those from a high level perspective, that's really what we're looking at from a why work with this particular group.
And out of these three, which one is INREG?
So your INREG is going to be your agent. They're going to be binding that coverage on your behalf. They're going to be working on a daily basis to go through your coverages with you. Make sure that you're aware of different trending changes in the market. And because of what we specialize in, that knowledge is key in making sure that your properties are covered accurately moving forward to ensure your investment
Okay, great. So we're going to play a game. We're going to see if you can guess the 5 states with the most expensive homeowners insurance in the U.S. So according to Insider Monkey, they identified these locations based on the average annual premium cost. Okay, so the state that came in 5th has an average annual premium of $2,123.
So let's see. We're doing from the bottom?
This is number 5, yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna guess New York. No.
Arkansas.
Okay.
So Arkansas has high probability of earthquakes, flooding, and wind damage, which is contributing to the higher premiums for the state. Okay, number 4. The average annual premium is $2,152.
Say Nebraska.
Close. Nebraska is on the list, but number 4 is Colorado. They have high probability of snow, hailstorms, and fires. So Nebraska was number 3.
Okay.
With $2,951 in average premium. And they see a lot of extreme weather and a lot of crime. Okay, number 2.
Well, I want to guess Oklahoma is number 1, so I'm going to say Missouri is number 2.
Close. Kansas is number 2.
Yeah,
So $3,083. And they have blizzards, tornadoes, and hailstorms. Okay, so yes, number 1, you were correct. Oklahoma. Average annual premium is $3,659 with tornadoes, winds, fires, and flooding.
Yeah, I mean, number 1, I can definitely see that.
And then the top, so other states that made it into the top 10 are Texas, Florida, Louisiana, Kentucky, and South Dakota.
Yep, I mean, across the board, I guess those all make sense.
Okay. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yep. We'll continue to post new episodes every other Wednesday on NREIG's YouTube channel, that's NREIG, and on Spotify and Apple Podcasts at Insured Investors. You can also follow NREIG on Facebook and LinkedIn. See you later!